Okay, I am back with another Storytime Live. I don't know why I get nervous. Still getting nervous every single time. Maybe because the story is kind of intense, and I don't know. It's a funny story, but I know why. Because the subject of people stealing your work or people taking credit for work that you did, I know it's a hot button issue. I know if you're an artist or you've ever created something, it's something that most of us have dealt with. Hi Heather, hi Hope. So I want to tell the story right. I want to also talk about the issue of how to behave when someone steals your work or copies your idea, and what I've learned in the last 20 years, because I've had my share of it lots and lots and lots of times. So I'm going to just get right into the story. Hey, Jody. Hi, Louise. So this story goes back to my early 20s, like literally my beginning of making things, DIY, craft fairs, creativity, all of that. I have a YouTube video talking about these ornaments right here, and you're probably not going to be able to see them very well. But I posted a picture down below, so if you scroll down, you'll see this photo in the next post down. So this is kind of like the very beginning story. So, hey Kelly, hi Kenise. When I was in my 20s, when I was in college, I went to school I was studying political science and also English, and I was planning on being a teacher because that was the safe thing, and I knew I was going to have to take out student loans, so I was thinking, okay, it's a guaranteed job to be a teacher, and that's what I was planning on doing, although all those tests you take before college said that I should be an interior designer, but the thought of being an interior designer just was like, didn't appeal to me. So, but all of my tests said creativity, like a pastry chef and interior designer and fashion, and so anyway, I ignored all of that, and I went to UC Santa Barbara. The main reason why I went there was to follow my friend Shane, who I talked about in the last video. I had a huge crush on him, and I was an idiot and went to school based on that and not like, what do I really want to do? If I could do it all over, I would have gone to theater school or fashion design or something other than what I did. But anyway, I'm in college and I am hating it. I'm absolutely hating it. I would, like, finals would come up, I would stress out, I would skip classes. I sat in this one political science class that went on for like an hour and 45 minutes. It was a Tuesday, Thursday class. At the beginning of the class, I would literally draw a picture of a clock and shade the minutes as they ticked by, like 5 minutes till the stupid class was over, that I was just completely bored. Because I wasn't following what I was meant to do. So anyway, finals were coming up, and I went to the craft store and I bought myself some supplies, and I sat them in the middle of the table, and I told myself, when you make it through finals, you can play with the craft supplies and make something, because I'd always made things with my mom as I was little, and just like that was my treat. And so right about this time, my friend Adriana from high school, I was in Santa Barbara, she was in San Diego, and she asked me if I wanted to come down to Orange County for the weekend because her mother-in-law made quilts, and she was going to this craft fair, and her booth got really busy and she needed people to help her with her booth. And at that time I'm like, craft fair? I don't even know what that is, but it sounds amazing. And so I drove down to San Diego and I met my friend Adriana at this craft fair in Orange County, in a very high-end area. If you've ever watched The Housewives of Orange County. But keep in mind, this is back in like 1987, I guess. And I get out of my car and I'm walking up the hill to the craft fair, and there are all these women lined up to get in, and they've got empty shopping bags, empty Nordstrom shopping bags, and they're just waiting there with their empty shopping bags so they can get in and shop. And I'm like, what is this? And so I got to go in early because I had a pass, because I was helping my friend. And so I get in there and I start, like, I can barely stay in the booth. I'm like mesmerized, and there's just all these beautiful handmade things everywhere, booth after booth. And so the first chance I get away, I start walking like through the booths and looking at everything, and I'm just like completely, like, just totally floored and loving all the handmade stuff. And I walk up to this one booth, and this woman was making these handmade dolls, and her booth was absolutely mobbed. Like, there was her booth, and then there was booths on each side, and the customers, the women, were like in the booths adjoining hers, trying to get to the woman and get a doll before she sold out. And I'm like, what are these dolls? Why are they so amazing? And by the time I got there, she had a waiting list, and she was taking names and numbers of people, so when she could make more dolls, because she had sold them all, she would call them and sell them some more dolls. And it wasn't, like, the dolls were well made and they were beautiful. I wasn't really into the dolls, but I was told, sorry, I got a phone call. I don't know how to make my phone not ring during a live. Someone knows, tell me in the comments. But I was just totally blown away by the fact that people were clamoring for things that were handmade. And that was like a moment in my life where I knew, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what I should be doing. And I just, like, I said a prayer, and I'm like, God, I want an idea that people will just line up to buy. And I want it to be my own idea. I don't want to make dolls, but I want to come up with some kind of craft that I can make that people will just, like, I'll sell out of. This is what I want. And I just, like, said that prayer, asking God, you know, to give me a cool idea so that I could go sell it and make it. And put it in do not disturb. Okay, I'll check that out after I'm done with this. So it wasn't long after that my sister got married. She got married when she was 20, and she moved from Southern California to the Midwest. And it was Christmas time, and I was like, you know, what do you want for Christmas? And I did a lot of handmade gifts because I was on a budget, and I just like doing that. So she says to me, would you just go down to the beach and get some sand and some shells and put it in a little jar and send it to me, because I miss the beach so much. So it was her first Christmas. Put the phone on airplane mode. Yes, I'm gonna airplane mode. Okay. So it was her first Christmas, and so I thought about going down to the beach to get some sand, but like the actual sand in California is kind of muddy and dirty. And then I thought, wow, you know, I'd like to make her some Christmas ornaments. Maybe I can take this idea of putting sand and seashells into something that could be a Christmas ornament. And I know you all probably by now, if you scroll down and see the picture of these glass balls with the sand and shells in them, I'm sure you've all seen them. But in 1986, 7, there weren't any. There was no Google or Pinterest to see, but like I did get on the computer, and there were no ornaments that I could find. And I went from store to store to store, and I even went to, like, we had these big seashell shops back then. And there were literally I remember looking at Christmas time at a Christmas tree inside this big seashell warehouse, and they had like a plastic blinking star at the top of the tree. And I remember thinking to myself, why wouldn't you put a starfish at the top of the tree? Like, that just seems like a logical thing to do, but they didn't do that. Like, they had ornaments that were decorated like Santa and little snowmen, but they didn't have any like beautiful, like the type of ornaments that I had in my head. So I bought a bunch of seashells, and I started looking for clear glass ornaments, and they didn't sell them. Like, I went to Target and I went to different places, and you couldn't buy clear glass ornaments, not at the craft store or anywhere. And so I ended up getting a hold of Holly Glass, which is a big ornament manufacturer, and I asked if I could buy ornaments that had not been painted yet, and they did sell them, but I had to buy them in a giant case of 144 ornaments. So, and I could find some plastic ones, and so I sent my sister the plastic ones, and they were pretty, and I took starfish and I covered them in glitter and gold leaf and gold paint, and I made like 24 ornaments for her tree, and I packed them up and I sent them to Kansas City. And she loved them, her friends loved them, her friends started asking if I could make some for them, which was so weird to me that they would sell not close to the beach. But I realized that was my idea, to sell at craft shows. So I started looking into craft shows, and I booked my first craft show at an elementary school in San Diego. And I had spent, like back then, I think I spent about $300 on getting the ornaments and all the supplies. And that was a lot of money for a college student in 1987. And at that craft show, like, everybody was like, oh my gosh, seashells on a Christmas tree. And I kept saying, it's California Christmas, but nobody had ever done that. Here, and Jane, I'll send you some. So it was like a novel idea back then, and I kept saying, it's California Christmas. And I had to kind of like get, like, people looked at them, they liked them, but they also like had to like warm up to the idea of actually putting seashells on a Christmas tree. Yes, there's a rooster where I live, which is so crazy now, because like coastal living, you've seen seashells on a Christmas tree over and over again. But they sold, and I sold enough ornaments that craft fair. I think they were $5 each, or 3 for $12. And I sold enough to make all of my money back that I had invested, the $300. So I'm like, this is it. So then I like booked a bigger craft fair, and a bigger craft fair. And then I did one craft fair that was like, I was so nervous to send in the application for it because it was $100 for the day, and that was a huge amount of money to me. But in that afternoon, I sold almost $4,000 worth of ornaments at a $5 or 3 for $12 price point, and people were lining up to buy them. And I was also personalizing them with a gold pen. I was writing on the glass their names and the year. And my mom and dad were there to help me. My little brother was there to help me. And so I was totally excited, and I wanted to take them to a trade show so that I could start selling them to other stores. And I even went to an attorney, and I got a copyright on them. Spent a lot of money on that, and that ended up being kind of useless. But the story that I want to talk about specifically today is at one of the craft shows that I did, it was in front of a grocery store, and I was just trying to book as many craft shows as I could go to, because the Christmas season is small, and I wanted to make as much money as I could before Christmas was over. And so I'm at this sleepy little craft fair one Saturday, and there's maybe a dozen vendors out in front of this grocery store, and nobody is selling anything. And I'm the only one who is selling my ornaments, because my ornaments did sell, and people were lined up to buy them as usual. And I was starting to get like dirty looks from the other vendors at the show because they weren't selling anything, and I was selling constantly. So there was a woman right next to me, and I don't know if you remember in the 80s, but the ornaments that are made out of bread dough, and they're like little animals, and you could personalize them, and there were like cows and chickens, and I don't know. She was selling those, and she wasn't selling any, and she asked me if I wanted to trade, like, you know, trade some of her ornaments for some of my ornaments. And I didn't want to trade because I couldn't make the ornaments fast enough. And so I would literally like make as many as I could, and then go home that night and stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning, and then go to another craft show the next morning. And I was always like struggling to have enough ornaments to sell at the next craft show. So I politely declined and said, no, I really can't do that because I need all of the ornaments to sell. I can't keep up with making them. Well, she wouldn't take no for an answer, and she kept, insisting that we trade. And I was really young. I was in my 20s, and she was older. She was probably 40 something. And she just kept asking me. And so I finally agreed to trade an ornament. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't want to trade. I don't want her ornaments. They're not my style. And I can't even think of a person that I would want to give one to for Christmas. And so I was just not strong enough at that time as 20-year-old Debbie to say, no, I don't want to do it. And so then she's like, pick out an ornament. And so I'm looking at her ornaments, trying to find something that maybe my grandma would like. And I pick out one, and she's like, no, pick out 3, pick out more. She's like, I want 3 of yours. You're selling them 3 for $12, so pick 3 of mine for 3 of yours. And then I was just like, oh my gosh, I do not want your ornaments. But I did not, I don't know, maybe. I don't know if Facebook has that option. So I didn't have the courage to tell her that I didn't want to trade 3 ornaments for 3 ornaments. So we ended up, she got 3 of my ornaments and I got 3 of hers. And then I gave the 3 ornaments to my grandma. Well, the very next weekend, I had booked a craft show in Orange County. And I went up there, I got my brother to go with me because I needed help. And my ornaments, and a customer walks in and she says, oh, these look just like the ornaments I saw at the other craft show. And I knew that nobody, I'd been to lots of craft shows, nobody was making these at this time. And I'm like, what do you mean? Are you sure? And okay, she says, yeah, the glass ball with the sand and shells, and she has starfish with glitter on them, and she's just describing she has these and she has these. And I'd taken 6 or 7 different types of shells, and they were really pretty. I'll try and find the pictures. And so I'm like, what the heck? And I'm like, well, where is this craft show? She goes, oh, it's just around the corner. It's about 10 minutes from here. And I was just it was my livelihood, and I was paying for college with this money, and I was saving up my money so that I could go to a trade show and I could start selling them wholesale to other stores. And to do a trade show, it cost $3,000. And so I just got mad, and I'm like, who is doing this? Who is copying me? And I told my little brother to stay there, to take the money, and I got in my car in Orange County, and I did not know the area at all, and I got the directions from the lady. There was no internet or cell phones at that time. And I got in my car and I drove to the craft fair that was a few minutes away. And I pay my entrance fee and I get in and I'm looking from booth to booth, and then I see the booth, and it's the woman from the week before who was insisting on trading ornaments with me. So she was trading ornaments so that she could copy them. And in that 1 week period, she had made hundreds of them, and they were all over the table. And she had copied my idea to a T, and not only did she copy me, but she didn't even want to fork out the $12 to pay me for the 3 ornaments. I had to trade for her bread dough ornaments. And I was pissed. I was super pissed off. And all of a sudden, my 20-year-old self, who didn't have the courage to tell her that I didn't want her ornaments, was mad. And so I marched into her booth, and I looked at her, and she looked at me, and I'm just like, so, this is why you wanted to trade ornaments with me, so that you could copy my idea and sell it. And she looked at me and she goes, oh, everybody's making these. And I'm like, no, they're not. I have a copyright on them. And you finagled into trading with me last week, and then you spent the whole week making these ornaments. You didn't have a single ornament like this in your booth. It was all, I'm like, where are your bread dough ornaments? And I was so mad. And she had some guy there with her who looked like maybe he was her boyfriend, and she looked really embarrassed. And I told her that I had a copyright and that my lawyer was going to send her a letter, and I stormed out of there. And I went back to my own craft show and sold my ornaments like it should have been doing. And I did have my attorney send her a cease and desist, but I quickly found out that you can't really protect ideas like that. So that is my story, and years went by. It's been, I was in my early 20s at that time, and since then, many of my ideas have been copied, and I've heard stories from you all about ideas that are copied and people taking credit for your work. And I probably spent another good 10 to 15 years like fiercely protecting my ideas. If you watch the video about how I got my store, from there I did go on to go to a trade show, and I did sell thousands and thousands of those ornaments to stores across the country. I had 300 accounts. And when I got my store, I came up with other ideas, and customers would walk in, and I was always making something behind the counter at my store, and they would ask me, what kind of glue do you use? Where do you get your seashells from? And I just wanted to say, this is my livelihood. I don't want to tell you. But I would make up lies and tell them a different kind of glue than I actually used. And I fiercely guarded myself and protected my ideas, and didn't want to share how I made things. And in that 15-year time period, I barely got by. I almost closed my store several times. And I paid my bills with what I made, but it was a really hard way to make a living. And I got to the point where in 2012, I was so frustrated with trying to pay the bills with the things that I made by hand, that I just said to myself, what if I do the opposite of everything that I've ever done? What if instead of fiercely guarding all of my precious ideas and my glue and my glitter and all my little, trade secrets, what if I just tell everybody how to do it? And I take all my best ideas and I share them on YouTube. And so that is what I did. And it was at that point in my life when I decided to let go and share how I make the things that I make, that my life completely changed, and my YouTube channel grew. And it was, in a lot of ways, it was freedom for me, because making and selling things handmade to 300 stores across the country, it's not like it's fun to make the first one and to come up with the idea and to make something original, but after you make thousands of them, you're just a handmade factory. And so this way, when I come up with an idea for my video, I make it that one time, and that's it. The Marilyn Monroe dresser, or the Mexican blanket dresser, whatever it is, the chair behind me, my chair for my desk with the paint pour. I like to make it one time. I like to show everybody how to do it. And I don't now people email me and ask me, will you make that chair again for my house? Or will you paint a Mexican dresser for me? And I don't want to do it. I would rather make money from the ad revenue off my YouTube videos, and I've found other ways to make money by sharing my ideas and teaching classes and selling things in a digital way. So, I know that's not for everybody. I know that it's a very personal thing, and when you've perfected something and you've poured your heart into it, it's really easy to be guarded and not want to share your ideas. And it's a personal choice, and I respect, whether you choose to share your ideas or not. But the one thing that I have learned through the last 20 years of doing this is that we're all inspired by something. Back when I was in my 20s, there was no Pinterest or Facebook. And now we get inspiration from everywhere. But when I am inspired by something, I always go out of my way to give credit to the person who gave me that inspiration. So if I find something on Pinterest, I put that in my video. When I was trying to do Dion's look, and I didn't, I totally respected the fact that she wasn't, at the time that I was trying to figure out her look, she wasn't giving tutorials. And I didn't even want to ask her, because I knew how it felt for me. And so when I did try and get her look, I totally linked to her, and I said, this is Dion's finish, and this is Do the Dion, and here's a link to her Facebook page, here's a link to her Instagram. And I think as artists, if we can all give credit where credit is due. There's nothing wrong with taking inspiration from someone else. I mean, you see it everywhere. I go online and I see, oh, that piece was inspired by Dion. That piece was inspired by Jamie Ray. That piece was, I've seen this piece and I know where it originated from. But lift each other up. Give credit when you get inspiration, even if you totally changed it and tweaked it. Why not help somebody else out? Why not use your own platform and your you know, the influence that you've had to give the person that you're so inspired by, that you went out of your way to actually make something because of them, the respect and the credit that they deserve. So that's my story for today, and that's my point of view. Let me know in the comments. I know this is like a personal kind of hot button topic, so share your stories in the comments. I've heard a lot of them from my artist friends out there. Let me know your perspective, and I will be back tomorrow with another story. All right.